Tonight, when you go to bed, try a test. Turn off the heater. Throw your blanket on the floor. Open all the windows in your room. Now imagine the thermometer outside doesn't read 0. It reads -30 degrees Celsius. The wind isn't just freezing, it's a continuous blade of ice. There are no walls, no light switch, and no hot water from the tap. In the math of this world, you are the most useless animal on the map. No claws, no thick hide. You are a primate designed for the heat of the savannah, trapped in a body that begins to shut down if its core temperature drops a mere 2 degrees. The rule of nature is brutal and clear. You shouldn't live to see the morning light. But here is the paradox that should keep you awake. Your ancestors lived exactly like this, not for one winter night, but for thousands of nights. Biology was wrong. Cave lions vanished, mammoths collapsed. But we, soft, fragile primates, broke the logic of the ice and inherited the earth. And the most lethal weapon that kept us from freezing to death in the dark wasn't fire, and it wasn't brute force. In the cold logic of animal survival, usefulness is measured in calories. He who brings meat lives. He who slows the pack is left behind. But humans began playing a different game. At the center of the primitive tribe, shielded from the deadly wind by the younger ones, sat our greatest evolutionary anomaly, an elder. A man or woman of 50, maybe 60 years old. Slow, frail, incapable of taking down prey. They consumed precious calories while the world outside starved to death. To a Neanderthal, built on brute strength to brave the cold, this might look like a mistake. But the Ice Age wasn't just a physical test. It was a test of memory. When a catastrophic blizzard buries the world for an entire month, dense muscle is useless. Muscle cannot find water beneath 6 feet of solid ice. Spears cannot guess where the herds have migrated. But an elder remembers. He remembers the relentless winter from 40 years ago. He knows which escape route hides shelters. He knows which toxic plant can be boiled until it becomes edible. He is the tribe's living library, the Google of the Paleolithic. Letting the elders freeze to death wasn't just losing a loved one, it was deleting the entire group's survival manual. The strength of a mammoth died with it. The knowledge of a human elder passed to the next generation, compounding. We didn't survive because we grew stronger. We survived because we began to develop ideas. But protecting this living library created an impossible logistical problem. How do you keep a frail, old body, or the tiny body of a baby, alive when night falls and the air drops to -30 degrees Celsius? You probably thought of fire. It's what everyone thinks. The myth of the caveman sleeping peacefully beside a campfire on the bare dirt. But try doing that in the extreme winter. You will die. And the reason is simple, brutal, and relentless. The ground is a thief. The science of cold is merciless. Frigid air cools the skin, but direct physical contact drains the heat from your core. Lying on the frozen dirt beside a fire is like lying over a drain that siphons your life away. In a matter of hours, the ground sucks away your 37 degrees until your heart stops. To avoid dying in their sleep, Ice Age humans had to become engineers tens of thousands of years before the first city existed. Archaeologists didn't find humans sleeping on bare dirt. They found engineered beds. 40,000 years ago, someone knelt in the dark and stacked layers of woven grass, packed the middle with moss to create insulating air pockets, and covered it all with thick hides. They weren't looking for comfort as we know it. That bed was a technological barrier against the murderous ground. But insulating the ground wasn't enough. The Ice Age wind doesn't just make you cold, it acts as an invisible blade that slices away the warm air around your body. The solution was architectural. On the steppes of modern-day Ukraine, where there was no wood or caves, they built impenetrable domes using the very skeleton of the world. Huts made entirely of skulls and tusks from dozens of mammoths, fitted together like masonry and sealed with thick hides. We have the shelter against the wind. We have the bed against the ground. But a closed hut in the middle of a polar winter is still a tomb. And this is where evolutionary biology reveals its masterpiece. Every living human body is a small radiator. A solitary furnace in a freezing tent only delays its own death. But put 10 furnaces together, 20. They didn't sleep isolated. They slept in a tight knot of human bodies pressed against each other. Science calls this social thermoregulation. It's the exact same survival math used by emperor penguins and wolves. The mammoth bone walls held back the wind. The fire at the entrance kept the cave lions away. But in the center of the darkness, the warmest thing in the known world wasn't the fire. It was the breath and the skin of the person sleeping next to you. The heat radiating off one body hit the next and bounced back. The thermal loss of one fueled the survival of another. Finally, we were warm. When you stop using 100% of your energy just to keep from freezing, something unprecedented happens. The human brain, now protected by the bed, the bone walls, and the unbroken heat of the tribe, does something no other animal on Earth could afford to do. It relaxes. For the first time in our history, the dark wasn't just a hiding place to wait for the sun to rise. The space illuminated by the fire became humanity's first stage, first school, and first temple. With full bellies and bodies warmed by each other, they began to talk, not just about where the herd would be the next day. They stared into the absolute darkness beyond the light and tried to explain the unexplainable. Why does the wind howl? Where do the dead go? Who lights the stars? Brutal survival built our bodies, but it was the safety of that collective embrace, social thermoregulation, that gave our minds the space to invent the soul. The first stories, the first myths, and the first gods were not born out of greatness. They were born from the relief of being together in the cold. So tonight, when you lie down in a heated room under a blanket you've never once questioned, remember what it actually is. It is the inherited answer to the most terrifying question your ancestors faced. How do we make it to tomorrow morning? They answered it in the freezing darkness, pressed against the people they loved for tens of thousands of years. And that, more than any biology or spear, is the reason you exist today. But surviving the night wasn't the strangest thing that happened inside those huts. Because when we finally got warm and the entire tribe fell asleep, the human mind kept working. It began to dream. And some anthropologists believe that the nightmares and visions they had there in the most extreme era of the world shaped everything we believe today. And that humanity's greatest weakness, our biological need to live in a pack, gave birth to something profound right there: trust. In the absolute darkness, what kept us from freezing to death wasn't the spear, the tent, or even the fire. It was the human sleeping beside you.